The BBC, which lauds itself with gold standards of journalism, is at the center of a storm. Two of its top bosses, Director General Tim Davie and Head of News Deborah Turness, have resigned. The crisis stems from BBC Panorama episode, a documentary examining Donald Trump's role in the January 6, 2021 Capitol riots. BBC editors stitched together separate parts of Trump's speech. The clip was misleading as Trump was shown saying, "We are going to walk down to the Capitol and I will be there with you, and we fight like hell." But originally, Trump never said that. He said, "We fight," 50 minutes after he mentioned Capitol Hill. To understand what went down at the BBC better, we are joined by Roger Mosey, former head of BBC Television News. Welcome, Roger. You have worked with BBC for so long, that too on the top position. I want to know what really unfolded when the backlash began. What went down inside BBC that led to two resignations, that too from the top bosses?
We don't know yet what happened within the labyrinthine committee meetings and discussions in the BBC, but the BBC was slow to respond to the latest allegations, and I think they were flat-footed for 3 or 4 days when the story broke about the Michael Prescott dossier. That said, the Director General of the BBC is the most enormous job, and you're dealing with MasterChef, and you're dealing with Hugh Edwards, and you're dealing with all these other issues that happen. And I think it's almost too much for one person. And if you look at the recent history of DG, with George Entwistle having to resign, Greg Dyke having to resign, all the pressures on Tim Davie, it's a simple question. Is DG of the BBC too big a job for one person? And does it need the BBC to rethink the way it handles both its editorial and its chief executive officer?
Right. The post Director General comes with a lot of responsibilities, and given the widening debate over BBC's alleged bias, so who is in the race for this position, and how the next Director General will be chosen at a time when BBC is surrounded by controversies? Who will take charge now?
I hope the BBC will look very widely for who the next Director General should be. Most of the recent Director Generals have been in various ways from inside the BBC, and it's early days, but it would be good to get a wider outside perspective. I think also the politicians need to give the BBC space to breathe, to be the public service organisation that it wants to be. And it's very important. The BBC as well needs to listen to the public. And I think one of the challenges which the Prescott document shows is that there have been times when the BBC has gone in maybe rather a liberal direction, and that hasn't necessarily won the affections and loyalties of other parts of the audience. So it's a difficult job, but the BBC needs to get on with public service broadcasting, have support from politicians, proper funding, and find the people who have got the vision to lead it into the future.
While we're at it, I want to know, what do you think about biasness allegations against the BBC now when Donald Trump has publicly slammed BBC? How much of these allegations are really true, and how it affects BBC?
And there's no doubt there are vociferous campaigns against the BBC, either for ideological reasons or commercial reasons. And the BBC has lots of enemies out there. Now, that happens. I mean, the BBC has to live with that. What it then has to do, of course, is be as good as it possibly can be. And that means not making what appear to be dodgy edits in documentaries about Donald Trump. And it has to live up to the very highest standards. And if it lives up to the highest standards, it gives itself a degree of armor plating against those campaigns. But the fact those campaigns exist and polarization is there in British society does make the BBC's job more difficult.
I know you're short on time, Roger. Just one last question. What went wrong with the Panorama Trump episode? Because the Telegraph report says a lot of things, including failings in BBC's coverage of the Israel-Hamas war, trans issues, and of course the Trump speech. What is the core problem? What needs to change after this, as per you?
I think that the dossier from Michael Prescott has got some things in it that are right and some things that I think are wrong. But within it, the problem areas, I think, are, first of all, the Trump documentary and the edit, which doesn't seem to be defensible. Secondly, most BBC executives I've talked to over the years think BBC Arabic does need a very close eye kept on it. And whether that's been absolutely the BBC standard, I think, is in some doubt. Then also, there are wider issues about, did the BBC go too far in a direction of the trans fans lobby, and that's something which is just part of the way the BBC has to reshape and reform its editorial from time to time. So some of it's regular business, other things have clearly been very damaging.
Thank you for joining us, Roger. A single edit has led to resignations and, importantly, has ruptured BBC's image. We wait as the BBC decides its next course of action.